When I was in college, third year, I was still living in the dorms. We had the option to move out onto campus housing or elsewhere after our second year, but I liked the dorm life, so I stuck it out for one more year. The dorms on campus were organized as follows. Each building was a quad. Each quad housed 4 dorms. Duh. Each dorm had 3 floors. Each floor was divided into 2 houses. So each dorm had 6 houses, and each house had their own RA, resident advisor. Each RA reported to the RD, resident director for each dorm, and all 4 RDs for each quad would report directly to the dean of students. With me so far? Don't give a shit, because none of that really matters for the events of the story. Our RA that year was a tiny rat of a man named Clint, or as he referred to himself, Empire. No, he didn't have a Napoleon complex, although he was short. He just really liked Star Wars. How much did he like Star Wars, Murphy? Well, that's a tiny tale in and of itself. My room was directly across the hallway from Empire's room, and if any of the students needed help with something, and Empire wasn't available, and he wasn't available a lot, they would just turn around and ask me. My door was always open, so they would knock on the door frame, and I would play interim RA for that moment. I ended up playing RA more times than I care to recall. But one day in particular, there was an emergency. I can't remember what the emergency was, but the girl was knocking frantically on Empire's door, calling out for him, but no answer. Now, every RA has a little sign on their door saying if they were in or out, and the little sign on Empire's door said that he was in. So she had every sense to pound on that door and get increasingly upset. She gave up and turned around to see me right behind her. I had enough sense to approach her to help rather than her come to me. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me. Again, the details escaped my memory. So then I joined her in pounding on Empire's door and yelling for him. I do remember at one point I started to insult his ability to be the RA if he's going to say that he's in but not be available, and that I would just go to the RD about it, but still no answer. I had enough. I grabbed the knob and began rattling the door. Now, all of the doors were fire doors, so they were that molded metal frame on a metal door with just enough give to them that if you yank on the knob hard enough, it would echo throughout the entire county. I grabbed the knob and inadvertently turned it, and to my surprise, the door was unlocked. I was furious enough to toss aside all matter and just barged in, and saw Empire on the floor, watching Empire Strikes Back, buck naked, masturbating. He had those giant Koss headphones on, so all he could hear was the audio from the TV and block out all other sound, which is why he didn't hear us. But he just sat there in shock, didn't even bother to cover up, and both the girl and I backed away slowly, closed the door, and stood there. I quickly snapped out of it and told the girl that we would go to the RA of the house next door and get her the help that she needed. Now, I'm not one to spread rumors of gossip about anyone, but the girl wasn't. By the end of the day, everyone in our house had stopped by my room to confirm what this girl had said and get all the gory, hairy details about it. No one ever went to Empire for anything ever again, and Empire was rarely seen ever again for the rest of the year. Again, this is not the story I wanted to tell, but it sets up our frustration with Empire. He was a do-nothing RA. It was their responsibility to kick off the year, organize social events, break the ice for kids that are spending their first year away from home. Empire did none of that. Well, that's not entirely true. He had a meet and greet in the TV room of our house, but he just started it and then disappeared, so I had to take over. Anyway, he never set up or organized any social events, and people were getting kind of pissed. Like, this was something that was advertised. What the fuck, right? So after Empire was caught tugging his lightsaber, people started coming to me more and more about stuff. I figured, we gotta do something. These kids are gonna riot. So I got a group of people I knew fairly well together, and we had a little meeting on what we could do. We needed something that was social, all-inclusive, meaning we couldn't discriminate, fairly inexpensive, and something that everyone could have some kind of voice about. One of the people I recruited suggested a movie night since the local Family Video had a 2 for $5 deal. We could go door to door asking people for like a quarter or 50 cents, and then we make a list of all the movies people want to see and then vote, but you can't vote on the one that you listed. That was a great start until someone suggested that we specifically get bad movies and MST3K them to death. Ding, 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 we have ourselves a winner. If you don't know what MST3K is, it's short for Mystery Science Theater 3000, a low-budget Comedy Central show later to Sci-Fi, where they made fun of horrible B-movies and old 50s serials. The cult following on this show was so phenomenal that when the show finally ended in the 90s and they started a Kickstarter to bring it back on Netflix, they reached their maximum goal without any problem. Anyway, moving on. So we had our event, but we needed a gimmick. Something that would stick, and something we could make a recurring event that would bring people back. And then one guy that hadn't said anything at all during the meeting finally chimed in. He was a really big guy, played rugby, and called Tater. He was massive and imposing, but a sweetheart of a man. He raised his hand and said, "Poor night!" There was a moment of silence while we all processed what he just said. And then the wisest thing I ever heard from a jock came forth. Look, anyone who's anyone watches it, and it's something we shouldn't be ashamed of. Look, if you take out all the sex scenes, what do you got? A really bad B-movie. We cover up the glass window on the TV room door so that no one can actually say we're subjecting everyone to watch it, and they have to actively enter the room to see what we're watching. We do what she said. We take a collection, and if you just state it matter-of-factly rather than be all sleazy about it, people will participate. And he was 100% correct. I went door to door telling everyone exactly what we were going to be doing and that no one was obligated to attend or donate or anything, and that we just thought it would be a weird and interesting way of finally doing something social. Of course, there were kids who were all, "Ew, gross, porn is disgusting, and how dare you objectify women?" And then I kindly thanked them for their time, and if they changed their minds, they know where they could find me. By the time I got to the end of the hallway, I had collected enough money for 2 videos and popcorn for everyone. I stopped by the local Family Video with the help of Tater, and we picked out 2 videos. To this day, I still find it hilarious that Family Video has a back room. We brought them back, hooked up a VCR to the TV room console, covered the window that was the entirety of the door to the TV room, and waited. We filled the room. There wasn't that much couch and chair space, so people went back to their dorms to get something comfy to sit on. And when everyone was settled, I pushed play. The event went on without a hitch, but since we were getting a bit loud and a tad bit rambunctious, we got yelled at and had to disperse. We did not give up. The next week, we decided to have the event in my room. That way, it wasn't a public space, and I could lock the door so no one could come in and bitch about it. Plus, I always had the room that everyone wanted to hang out in after Empire fired his thermal torpedoes. The way my room was set up was a modified loft. The floor was elevated so I could store all my junk under there, and on the platform I had a couch, armchair, and beanbag chair. Above the couch, elevated more, was my bed. People would actually come over from the other side of campus because the rumors, "You have to check out this guy's dorm." This second night, I put a sign on the door that simply said, "Movie night, tonight, 8 p.m. We had 20 kids packed in there, and after they were all settled, I addressed the group. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Now, I know that we're going to be viewing some adult films this evening, and I assume that's why you're all here, because we're all sick fucks. But, because what we will be watching is adult-oriented, I want to set some ground rules. First, porn is not for everyone. You can leave at any time, and no one is allowed to give anyone shit for leaving. I want this to be a fun time, and if someone leaves, I don't want it to be because someone in here made them feel like shit. Second, keep your hands to yourself. Third, keep your hands off yourself. This is my fucking room. I don't want crusty sheets. 4th, this technically being a movie night, all conversation will be about the movie we are watching. If you have ever watched MST3K, then you know exactly what to do. If you haven't, you'll catch on quick. And with that, I put in the tape and pushed play. The movies we got that evening were 2 parody porns, Beaver and Buttface and Mr. Holland's Orgy. Both were equally ridiculous and hilarious. Beaver and Buttface was obviously a parody off of Beavis and Butthead. Every set was a green screen, so the art in the background made it look like a cartoon. Even the 2 guys that were playing the main roles had wigs and fake noses and chins on to make them look more like Beavis and Butthead. It was comedy gold! At one point, the 2 actors did what Beavis and Butthead did on every episode, watching music videos and making fun of them. But in the parody, they were watching porn and making fun of them. So we had a double dose of gizmonic medicine to the fray. In one scene, they either didn't write anything for it or it was a last-minute idea, but Beaver and Buttface throw a party. As soon as the party started, the screen went black and some white text appeared. Due to the graphic nature of this scene, it cannot be shown. What the fuck, man? This is a porno! Are you actually considering that preschoolers might be watching? The entire room was booing the screen and throwing popcorn at it. But when the screen came back on, Beaver and Buttface were lounging on a couch with porn star Holly Body between them, trying to act all cute and innocent. The boys were completely wiped out, and you could see that they had been actively partying, and some conversation occurs back and forth. Then Holly, in her best Beavis voice, says, "Hey, how about some anal sex?" I fucking lost it. She's actually one of my favorite starlets, and she has a very meek and timid voice. And for her to pull this off, I was floored! I spit my beer out and could not contain the laughter. If you've ever been in a Discord or Skype call with me or heard me on live stream, you know exactly what it sounds like when somebody broke Murphy. Buttface leaves the set and Beaver proceeds to plow Miss Body up the ass, still wearing his wig and makeup. But the creme de la creme, and I do mean creme, of the entire movie was the classroom scene. Butthead was having difficulty discerning the difference between a thespian and a lesbian. So the teacher, a very endowed blonde woman, decided to be a good teacher. She invited 2 girls to the front of the class. The first, a brunette with even bigger boobs, sporting pigtails and a very loose-fitting crop top and sleep shorts. The second, a slender black-haired beauty with big dark eyes. The teacher asked the big-busted girl with pigtails to recite Shakespeare. Like a typical Valley girl, she proclaimed, "O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" The teacher said, "Now that's a thespian." The teacher then hops up on the desk, hikes up her already short skirt to reveal nothing underneath, and looks at the other girl. "Now I want you to eat my pussy." The dark-haired girl goes to town on the teacher, and in between short, excited breaths, the teacher explains, "Now that is a lesbian." Cue brown chicken, brown cow, and all 3 girls are in a pyramid of oral deliciousness. There was eating, licking, munching, not to mention when the teacher brought out the strap-on. Everyone in the room was hooting and hollering. After Beaver and Buttface ended, we all took a short bathroom break before we started the other flick. Mr. Holland's Orgy was definitely not as ridiculous as the previous porn, except for the final scene of the movie. The entire cast banded together to support Mr. Holland's project by all fucking each other in a massive orgy. Mr. Holland was off in the corner conducting the entire display in 4/4 time. Like, that actually fucking mattered. At one point, the principal walks in and the entire orgy halts. She, a big-titted blonde, I know, shocker, was upset that this was going on in her school. Without her! She immediately grabbed one of the jocks by the dick and wheeled him around, dropped to her knees, and went to town on him like she was trying to suck-start a Harley. The orgy continued right where it left off, and you quickly found out that the principal was the biggest slut of the entire school, the way she was gobbling cock, taking it up both holes and riding it hard and fast. And then, the unthinkable. The camera had a close-up of the principal riding hard on one guy, and suddenly, we all sat in silence trying to comprehend what we just saw and heard. That was definitely a fart. But the question was, which hole did it come from? Here's what you have to picture. A room full of hormone-crazed 20-somethings cutting off all libido sensory outlets to focus on whether a fart came from a woman's vagina or her butt. We must have stopped, argued, and rewound that tape at least 50 times, and every time, the argument kept on getting funnier. See, look here, when she slid down on his dick, right there, you can see a ripple. That's a pussy fart. I don't know, rewind that again. No, that couldn't have been a pussy fart. It was too low of a note. What does that have to do with anything? Different pussies can have different tone to them, can't they? Hold on. That came from her butt. I swear I saw her asshole open up. Rewind that shit. Every girl in the room was unable to breathe from the amount of laughing. At the end of the argument, we were at an impasse. The mystery will never be solved. The movie ended and everyone went back to their dorms. Some guys had to stay behind until it was safe to stand up, which I respected. When everyone was gone, I shut the show down and crawled into bed. The next morning, it was like everyone was old friends. We had shared something that was both intimate yet at arm's length away. And with the laughing and camaraderie that was had that one night, we transformed from fellow students to family. As for the rest of the year, Porn Night continued every month until summer break. But never again was it as hilarious as that second night when we were taught the difference between thespians and lesbians. And when we argued, where'd that fart come from?